They were once allies, fighting side by side, brothers in arms. But today, they circle each other like rival predators, locked in a cold, quiet war that has spilled into technology, trade, influence, and ideology. So, what happened? When did China and America go from friends to foes? Let's rewind. In 1943, something incredible happened. China became one of the big four allies of World War II, right alongside the US, the UK, and the Soviet Union. President Franklin D. Roosevelt even promised Chiang Kai-shek that China would rise as a great power after the war. America poured in support: planes, weapons, advisors. They believed in China's potential. They believed in the alliance. But then, everything changed. In 1949, the Communist Party, led by Mao Zedong, won the Chinese Civil War. The US-backed government of Chiang Kai-shek fled to Taiwan, and the US refused to recognize Mao's new regime in Beijing. For the next 30 years, Washington didn't even acknowledge the People's Republic of China as a country. Diplomatically, China vanished from America's world map. That's when the real ice began to form. Back then, the US feared communism like a deadly virus. And Mao's China? It wasn't just infected. It was the lab. The Korean War broke out in 1950, and China fought directly against US troops. American boys died facing waves of Chinese soldiers. The alliance was shattered, and in its place, paranoia, hatred, mistrust. But here's the twist that most people didn't see coming. In the 1970s, the US suddenly warmed up to China, and the reason wasn't peace or brotherhood. It was strategy. The Cold War was raging. America's real enemy was the Soviet Union. So President Nixon made a historic move. He flew to Beijing, shook hands with Mao, and began the great opening of U.S.-China relations. It was like inviting a lion into your backyard, just to keep the bear at bay. This is where the love-hate phase began. Trade started to flow. China got access to U.S. technology, investment, and markets. Factories boomed. Workers flooded cities. China's economy exploded. And America? America got cheap goods. So cheap, it became addictive. But behind the smiles were clenched teeth. Because by the early 2000s, it was clear. China wasn't just rising, it was catching up. Fast. Factories in America shut down. Towns across the Midwest fell quiet, while cities like Shenzhen and Shanghai lit up like modern miracles. People started to whisper, "Did we create our own rival?" Now here's your halfway point, and it's a question nobody dares to ask out loud. What if the Cold War never really ended? What if the next chapter just swapped out Russia for China? Because after 2008, the year of the global financial crash, China didn't stumble. It soared. It became the world's factory, then a tech powerhouse, then a military competitor. It launched the Belt and Road Initiative, building roads, ports, and influence from Africa to the Arctic. And suddenly, Washington noticed this wasn't just trade. It was a challenge to the world order. By the 2010s, tensions boiled over. President Obama started a pivot to Asia. President Trump fired back with tariffs, launching a trade war that's still burning. President Biden took it even further, choking China's access to advanced semiconductors, forming global tech alliances, and reinforcing U.S. ties with Japan, South Korea, India, and even Taiwan. And speaking of Taiwan, that tiny island is now the tightrope between war and peace. Beijing says Taiwan is part of China. Washington supports Taiwan's democracy, sells it weapons, and hints at defending it if attacked. One misstep, one plane shot down, one ship sunk, and the entire Pacific could ignite. But how did it come to this? How did a wartime alliance turn into a modern rivalry that now threatens the global balance? The answer is buried in two competing visions of the future. America sees itself as the leader of a free, rules-based world. China sees that world as something built to keep it down. America wants open seas, open markets, and open speech. China wants stability, control, and a return to greatness. And in this clash, there is no middle ground. But now, before we end, here are 4 powerful facts most people never hear about this U.S.-China struggle. Bonus fact 1. China is now the #1 trading partner of over 120 countries, not the U.S. China. That shift in economic gravity is reshaping diplomacy around the world. Bonus fact 2. In 2021, China tested a hypersonic missile that circled the globe before hitting its target. The Pentagon said it caught them off guard. This wasn't just a flex, it was a message. Bonus fact 3. Chinese companies now dominate the world's rare earth supply, the materials used in smartphones, electric vehicles, and weapons. And guess what? The US imports over 80% of its rare earth elements. Talk about a dangerous dependency. Bonus fact 4. In the 1980s, Deng Xiaoping, China's quiet reformer, said, "Hide your strength, bide your time." That strategy guided China's rise for decades. But now, under Xi Jinping, the gloves are off. It's no longer about hiding, it's about leading. So here we are, 2 superpowers, one rising, one trying to hold its ground, neither willing to blink, and the world watching, hoping they don't collide. Because when China and America clash, the shockwaves hit everyone, from the price of food to the fate of nations. This rivalry is no longer just political. It's personal, global, and possibly unstoppable. If you haven't already done so, please like this video and subscribe to our Best Time Quest channel today.